Hello, and welcome to 4 Chicks vs. Netflix. This is the pilot episode. I'm Rory, and my favorite movie is Inside Out, and this is my little bird friend, and I like him because he's very colorful.
I'm Ellery. My favorite movie is The Dark Knight, and this is my Tom Brady statue because I live and die with the Patriots. Thank you, Auntie Mary, for gifting this to me.
I'm Maria. My favorite movie is The Godfather, and this is a little octopus, not mine, but I think he's adorable nevertheless.
I'm Ava, and my favorite movie was Rocket Man, which came out recently, and this is my little Merida pop vinyl that my sister's boyfriend gave me because I think he wants me to start my own collection.
Great, so now that you know all of us, we're going to talk about our first film, which is called Gully Boy. And Gully Boy is a Bollywood film. It's a film from India, Mumbai specifically. It's the language spoken is Hindi, but you can watch it with subtitles. And it's about a young man from the slums who becomes a hip-hop star. And it's directed by Zoya Akhtar, who is a very well-known female director in Bollywood. We're going to show a trailer for you guys.
अपनी राख से टूट जा अब तलाश में परवाज़ देख परवाने की आसमां भी सर
बस ये तो तेरे अंदर की सच्ची कहानी तेरे अंदर का लावा फट के बाहर आन दे
अब हौसले से जीने दे अब खौफ नहीं है सीने में हर रास्ते को चीरेंगे हम कामयाबी छीनेंगे सब कुछ मिला पसीने से मतलब बना अब जीने में क्यों
तू कौन है क्या औकात क्या तेरा
कोई दूसरा मेरे को बताएगा मैं कौन है
क्योंकि अपना टाइम आएगा तू नंगा ही तो आया है क्या घंटा लेकर जाएगा
So that was the trailer, and now we're just gonna have a little discussion about Gully Boy. So, how'd you all like the movie? How'd you like the music?
I really like the music because I want to be a poet someday, so when I'm watching all those rap battles, I'm like, oh my god, this is so good. I really like how the rhyme scheme and everything, and that's really something that I'm very interested in.
Honestly, this movie was really reminiscent of like 8 Mile for me because it kind of like shows similar processes that like Eminem went through, and then in this movie you kind of see the same like I'm gonna write and then I'm gonna battle some people and I'm gonna come out on top. But they did it in like a different style. It's like the same but different, and I feel like a lot of movies follow that kind of thing, so it was very interesting to like see those parallels that I didn't think I would see anywhere else.
I'm always like, I love a good underdog story. Like, he came from the slums and then made it big, and so, like, something, like, I just love that. I like happy endings, and like,
It's inspiring.
like, yeah,
Yes.
like, go you, dude.
Like, oh man.
You know, like, I just love that.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about this movie is that's actually based on a true story. And the main music in the movie, the main song, Mere Gully Mein, which means in my gully, it's a video that was copied and reenacted from a video that was done by 2 rappers named Divine and Nazy that came out in 2015. And you can find it on YouTube. You can watch it with the phonetic Hindi. You can see how the rhyme structure is set up so that you know, it's really not so different because hip-hop is just spread all over the world, and even though you have different languages, the whole structure is the same where you have, it's, poetry over rhythm, and you have, the rhyme structures, so,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I always listen to American music being in America, so it's nice to be exposed to music from different parts of the world, especially when it's so similar and you're like, we're really not that different, It's similar but different enough,
It was like really funny because it kind of I went to England over winter break this year to see my friends that I met at a job I was working, and it was funny because like in this I could see parallels just like you did between music from different places and music from here. But in England, it's like kind of different because like the people from England have gone here to like really distribute their music. So some of it's different, and it was really good actually. but then most of it's like, I could hear this on 103.3. So it was interesting to like actually hear different music for once instead of it being like, oh yeah, that's that song I hear every day on the radio. But it was, again, I kind of picked up some of the rhythms, some of like the messages that he was trying to say throughout the songs from music that we hear pretty much every day. So it was cool.
Yeah, I think the movie really represents like the roots of hip hop, you know, coming from kind of like a low income, you know, bad situation, and, you know, rising up and talking about where you come from. That's a huge part of hip hop culture, where you come from. And so I wanted to ask you all how you felt about the female characters in the movie, particularly Safina, who is Murad, our hero's girlfriend. You know, she's the Muslim character who's very outgoing and she's very intelligent. She's, you know, trying to get a degree in science.
I really liked how she inspired Murad to not care so much what other people thought of him, not listen to all of those people who were telling him to keep his head down, even though those people were in their own way looking out for him. They were trying to protect him in their own way. She was trying to protect his passion and inspire him to keep going, in spite of all the things telling him to stop and just be another face in the crowd. He drew on her strength and her determination to keep going, and he was able to make the most out of his gift.
I think it's interesting, especially how her character was written, because in my experience with movies that weren't necessarily created in, like, keeping in mind, like, an American story, it shows, like, not white people and stuff like that. You usually see female characters as they're written typically in America, where they kind of are, like, smaller, but this one was... She had her own character development. She was the voice of reason, saying, like, don't go with societal norms. Like, actually, like, choose your own path and follow that until it gets you somewhere, which you don't typically hear, even in America. Now we're coming into the age of, like, men and women having sort of similar character development, like, especially with movies like Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel. But I just found it very interesting because I typically don't see, especially in foreign films, women with stronger character development. Not to say that, like, we're on the up and up with that, for sure. But it was very interesting because I don't watch a lot of foreign films, so I was like, okay, they're getting the message too. Cool.
It's great to see a woman. She's strong, she's beautiful, she's the voice of reason, like Ava and Ellery were both saying. So it's like, it's great to see a character like that having such a prominent role in the narrative and in the other characters' developments as well.
Yeah, great. What was your favorite scenes in the movie? Least favorite scenes?
My least favorite part about the movie was that it wasn't in English. But that's, like, definitely a me problem, because I just don't even when I'm reading, I really need it to be, like, in English, so it helps me, like, read along with the subtitles. When it's, like, a language I don't understand, it feels more like there's just noise going on, and then I'm trying to read.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work for me. So that's why I didn't want to, like, I did watch it and I did enjoy it. Like, I did like this movie, but I was a little confused on what I was going to say because I was like, I needed to watch a couple scenes over again just because the reading the subtitles is a little hard for me. But really, in my opinion, I think that was really the only gripe that I had with it, because otherwise I thought it was a really well-rounded movie.
I would agree with Ellery. That was the biggest challenge, that it wasn't in English. I do watch some, not as many as I'd like, foreign films or international films, but they're always in a language I understand. So I'm reading English subtitles, hearing a language I understand, so it's kind of like that reinforcement. But it's a language that I've never heard, so it was a little challenging to keep up at times.
Right.
But, I mean, that's just one small complaint. But it's not even the movie's fault, it's my fault, you know?
Right.
I had trouble keeping up with the subtitles sometimes during the rap battles because they would go so quickly. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to copy along, and I was
paused
trying
it
to.
frame by frame at one point. I was like, well, here we go. Okay, next one. All right, sick.
I had to rewind it a few times, and I was like, okay, I love this.
Yeah.
And other than that, sometimes I was like, at the scenes of domestic abuse, I was like, I really just wanted to jump in there and be like, oh my god, help her or something. But I understand that it was important to the plot.
Oh yeah, I like it when movies show that kind of thing. Not because it's good for the character or anything, but it's like, this is something that happens. Like,
Yeah.
they're being true to a real story. And I think that it's awesome when media companies will put themselves out there and say, we're going to show this because it is a true story and this actually did happen. And it also gives it even more legitimacy that it didn't have before they put that scene in. Because you can make the happy story of a kid going from nothing to everything, but you gotta add in all the different things. It was kind of, again, like 8 Mile. They showed a lot of the things that he had to go through, which also included some abuse and physical abuse at that. And it was interesting to see that part of the movie also in this movie, because again, it's not in English. And it kind of brings things full circle, because a lot of media today in America is doing the same thing. They're like, we're not going to ignore this anymore, we're going to put this in. And so it's cool to see it in other languages also.
My hope is that, not in just in Gully Boy, but any movie that shows like difficult or mature topics like that, like domestic abuse specifically, because that's what we're talking about, that it starts a dialogue, like a positive conversation that can come from it, so that it's something that we don't have to show in the future because it's not a reality anymore.
Right.
You know?
I feel like there's a delicate balance between when you're showing these things, between normalizing it, glorifying it,
Yes.
or showing it as it is.
Very true.
And legitimizing it. So, like, especially with the domestic abuse scenes and the scene where the Murad's friend was taking in the children and they were doing drugs and stuff. I thought that was an important scene. I didn't like it because that, like, who wants to see children in that position or people going down that road? But also it legitimized it in a way that would have not been as, it wouldn't have been as impactful if it hadn't been in there.
Specifically, the drug part reminded me, I don't know if any of you guys have seen The Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio. There's a scene where he was doing a certain drug. It's not coming to me now, but he was doing a certain drug. The person that took him in locked him in a room and gave him all the things he needed, like food, water, shelter, everything. But they didn't let him leave until his withdrawal symptoms were done. And I thought that was very interesting because it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So I think it's good, especially, and that movie's from a long time ago. I didn't even realize that this movie was released on the 14th. So it was cool to see that kind of side of movies is definitely developing more and becoming more of an integral part of, I don't know if integral is the right word, but like, it's becoming a more major part in, like, true stories because it actually did happen.
Yeah, and they're not leaving it out.
Right.
Yeah.
This movie turned a lot of heads because there was never a Bollywood movie like this before that had, hip-hop as the main musical theme, because a lot of classical Bollywood films are musicals, but they follow, traditional Indian music. And lately there's been a trend toward movies that aren't musicals or have just one or two songs, and so I thought this movie was interesting in that it celebrated that tradition but in a new way.
Right.
And another new thing that this movie is doing, that's a trend now, is it's showing the stories of low-income people in India, which was not something that you really saw in, like, the heyday of Bollywood, the 70s, the 80s. It was all about these upper-class people, their romantic lives and that sort of thing. And so there's this movement of people who want to see themselves on screen in Bollywood. And so this is, like, a prime example of that.
There you go.
Here we go. So our collective rating for Gully Boy is... boom.
I would say it's good. We got 2 thumbs up, so that's like
8 thumbs out.
8 thumbs up. That's slow math.
Alright, so that's Gully Boy. And the next show we're going to talk about is The Good Place. And The Good Place is a sitcom on NBC, and the short version is it's about what happens after you die. A little bit of a longer version of that is a woman named Eleanor gets killed, and she ends up in The Good Place. And she has to navigate her way around while knowing that she doesn't actually belong in The Good Place. And so we'll show you a trailer for that.
You, Eleanor Shellstrop, are dead.
Cool. How did I die?
Are you sure you want to hear? You were struck by a truck advertising an erectile dysfunction pill called Engorgulate. Funnily enough, the first EMT to arrive was an ex-boyfriend of yours.
Okay, I get it, thank you.
You're okay, Eleanor. You're in the good place. You are here because you got innocent people off death row.
You are my soulmate.
Cool, bring it in, man! You'll stand by my side no matter what, right?
Of course I will.
I wasn't a lawyer. There's been a big mistake. I'm not supposed to be here.
Wait, what? Are you sure this isn't you?
They got my name right, but nothing else. Somebody royally forked up. Why can't I say fork?
If you're trying to curse, you can't hear.
That's bullshit.
Tell me one good thing that you did on Earth.
Do you have a second to talk about the environment?
Do you have a second to eat my farts?
Oh.
I can't risk going to the bad place.
Okay, well, maybe it's not all that bad. We'll ask Janet. Hey, Janet?
Hi there. How can I help you?
What is the bad place like?
I can only play you a brief audio clip of what is happening there right now.
Well, it doesn't sound awesome.
Hello. Can I just say, I love your house. It's just so teensy.
Hello! I'm just a big, beautiful cartoon giraffe.
Cheers.
Condescending bench.
Okay.
30 glasses of wine and no hangover.
This place rules.
These people might be good, but are they really that much better than me?
Did you fill your bra with shrimp?
No. Yes. So who is right?
Every religion guessed about 5%, except for Doug Forsett. One night he got high on mushrooms and got like 92% correct.
So that was trailer for The Good Place. I don't know if any of you seen the trailer, but it basically summarizes the first episode in 2.5 minutes, which I thought was pretty funny. So, The Good Place.
So basically, just so y'all know, we started off by watching the first and last episode of The Good Place. And
Of season 1.
Of season 1. And I have to say, I knew what was gonna happen from the minute it started. When they were like, this is the bad place, and the smiley guy on the screen turned around and he was like, ha ha ha, you figured it out. I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. But I thought, genuinely, it's a very interesting storyline. Like, I have no idea how these writers came up with these people dying, and this is like the afterlife, and the only way that they could torture, like this new concept of torturing people was like, they're gonna torture each other. But what I liked the most was figuring out that everyone, no matter how good they seemed, had a bad part to them. And it was very interesting to see, especially with the characters that it isn't revealed until like that end episode. Because the whole time you're like, that person's not like a good person. But then you're just like, oh, very interesting. Because like, especially with Cheaties and thing, it was him doing good at the expense of others and making others miserable on, like, just because he was doing good deeds for people that didn't really matter. I thought, like, it's very well written, and I really appreciate the masterminds that put this together.
I would agree 100% with what you're saying. It's the show is very interesting. It's high key lighting. It's funny. It's lighthearted. It's like just an easy show to watch. But then at the same time, it really raises questions of humanity and what do we consider good? What do we consider bad? Everyone has their flaws, even though at the beginning everyone, except for Eleanor, comes across as perfect. Everyone's a humanitarian and a philanthropist. And then slow by little, we see their flaws and we see them doing harm versus good.
And it raises questions of how do we judge people, like, on the afterlife? Like, to get into the good place, you have to do all your deeds mean that you're either adding positive value or negative value to the universe, and that's how you get into it. But I was wondering as I was watching it whether they take into account that people get stuck in their thinking a lot, and usually, like, people who are stressed or they're not thinking clearly, they'll do bad things out of fear. But, like, babies aren't sent to the bad place, right?
Right, yeah.
Right. Well, that's a whole philosophical discussion right there.
Yeah.
Segueing off of that, I wanted to ask because basically how the afterlife works in the show is that you have a point system, and every action you perform in your life is given a point value, either positive or negative, and then based on your total, you get sent to the good place or the bad place. And so I wanted to ask you all if you think that a person's goodness or badness can be measured in an exact way.
I just want to say the point system was what gave it away for me, because one of the things that they say in the first episode is you're here because you got a, like, unheard of score. And it was rated from 0.01 or something, like, it wasn't, like, 1 would be the best score that you could get. And when I saw these, like, scores of, like, 0.999999787, I was just like, I feel like it really took it. It was a little bit too, that score, it was a little bit too good to be true. And that's kind of what gave it away for me, because, you know, if every action was rated, everyone's done bad things in their lives. Everyone's hurt someone. Everyone's been hurt by someone, unless you're a psychopath. But, you know, it was interesting because it was just like, how do you rate a human life? You know, how do you really, like, rate good and bad? Because there's obviously, like, if you kill someone, that's not good. Obviously, if you, like, torture someone or abuse someone, even, like, you know, there's a good number of things that there's laws against. But how do you rate, like, you don't give $5 to a homeless person on the street, or you do give $5 to a homeless person on the street. How do you rate that? And I was interested, I wish they went into the point system a little bit more in last episodes, because then it would kind of give us a more of an idea of what they were actually being rated on. Because that's really what gave it away, because it's like, how do you do that?
And people do wrong things for a good reason, or they do good things for the wrong reason. And so how do you measure that? How do you measure the action? Do you measure the reasoning? And I don't think that it can be on a point scale. I think that you're looking at it as a very black or white issue, and I think that life is in such a great area that I think that was a pitfall for the show. And I think I agree with Ellery. If they went into more detail, like, all right, take one action and then kind of, like, broke it down a little bit more, I think that the viewers could understand and kind of accept that point system a little bit better.
They do actually, like, begin to question how the point system works in future seasons, because we did only see first and last episode of season 1. This show has 3 seasons out, a 4th one on the way. It does delve into some more interesting topics later on, and so kind of segueing into, you know, what happens next, I wanted to ask about your reaction to seeing the plot twist and the rebooting of The Good Place.
My reaction, I had a weird sense of, like, it felt like when I watched Inception, and they went into a different dream. And, you know, like, I kind of, like, I almost felt like I was going to have to relearn who the character was. Because it almost resets the person watching it also. Because you have to accept that that character has no memory of what just happened to them. And when she finds the note that says, find Chidi, I was just like, and then she was just like, who the heck is Chidi? I was like, yeah, like, how is this going to play out? But also, I think that's what they wanted you to think, so you would watch the next season. But that's really good writing, you know. I keep talking about the writers. Good job, writers.
I'm excited to watch more of this. Like, I didn't hear about The Good Place before, but like after Rory recommended it, I was like, no, I really like this. Pretty good. And the whole time I was watching both episodes, I was like, the system's gonna break. The system's gonna break. Because no system is perfect. So I think that's gonna be like major thing that we're gonna see. Just the system breaking all the time, and they're gonna fine tune it and everything and do their best. But every system has a little flaw, and humans are pretty good at exploiting flaws.
You know what it reminded me of? It was Hang the DJ, that Black Mirror episode, because it follows the same kind of thing. It was, in that episode, they kind of were in a system that matches them with their soulmate, and these two people fell in love outside of that pairing that they were put into, and they had to re-go into the system and find their way out over and over and over again until they actually found their way out. But we don't really know what happens to them. But with this particular show, if you watch the second, third, and fourth seasons, I'm sure you kind of start to figure it out. So that also made me interested, because it's playing off a lot of different ideas that other people have tried to come up with, and like other shows that explore this same kind of thing. So it was pretty interesting to see, like with Gully Boy, parallels to other things.
Yeah, and also too with like the whole soulmate. Does like that raises the question of like, is your soulmate somebody that you're in love with? Because in the show, The Good Place, we see everyone's paired with a soulmate, but then people are falling in love with other people outside of that. So, like, what does that mean for a soulmate? Is someone still your soulmate even if you're not in love with them? Vice versa. Which is a very interesting question, and I've only seen parts of the first season, so I'm wondering if in later seasons will that get developed.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started watching The Good Place, I thought like, oh, maybe the soulmate, it can be, you know, like a romance, or it can be like two best friends, because there are like some minor characters who are like, oh, they're soulmates, but they're more like best friends than. But yeah, it was interesting seeing the pandemonium happen, because it was like the soulmate was seen as like the only like sure thing, you know, still left, and people were fighting over who their soulmate is, and you know, who deserves to go to the bad place, when they were put up to this timer of, you know, two of you have to go.
Right.
And yeah. So our collective rating for The Good Place is, boom, 8 comes out of 8. Once again.
All right.
It's not a competition though, just saying.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, for our first episode of 4 Chicks vs. Netflix. And next episode, you don't want to miss this.
Yeah, we have my picks, so stay tuned for a fun episode, all things Ted Bundy.
Fun episode about Ted Bundy, folks.
Yeah.
All right, goodbye.
Bye.